This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, how there, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. And on this day, January 27th, 1991, Super Bowl 25 happened. The silver anniversary of the Super Bowl. It just had to have happened that way. And thankfully, though, the 25th anniversary of the Super Bowl, well, not the 25th anniversary, but the 25th Super Bowl, if you will, delivered some great moments. Of course, this was during the time of the Gulf War, which actually caused an issue with the halftime show. So that's what happened and all that. But regardless, the Super Bowl had a ending that cannot be forgotten. Anyway, the Bills and the Giants were going toe-to-toe for the Super Bowl. Tampa got the Super Bowl for the second time. They hosted it in 1984, which saw the Raiders shockingly crush the Washington team of a different nickname. Anyway, the Bills led the league in points scored, 428, whereas the Giants only gave up 211, which was funny that the Bills had the best offense, the Giants had the best defense. They actually met in the early in the season. The Bills beat the Giants 17-13. So anyway, the 1990 New York Giants were made with power football, strong defense, and offense for long drives. And it worked. Pepper Johnson, Lawrence Taylor, Gary Reasons were all very good players in their own right. Everson Wallace was picked up from Dallas, and it worked out great. He picked up 6 interceptions. The linemen were good. Otis Anderson and Dave Maggott were good runners and all that. The Giants actually ended up going 10-0 to start the season, which was shocking. And they went on a tailspin the last 3 out of 4. The Giants, in one of the best Monday Night Football games around, were 10-1, facing the 10-1 San Francisco 49ers, but lost 7-3. Unfortunately, Phil Simms got hurt in the game against Buffalo when he had a broken bone in his foot, so Jeff Hostetler had to come in. But he looked pretty good. The Giants ended up winning the last 2 games of the season, winning 13, and being the 2 seed in the NFC playoffs, 1 game back from San Fran. Meanwhile, Buffalo had 9 Pro Bowl selections on their roster. Bruce Smith was the Defensive Player of the Year. Darryl Talley, Shane Conlon, and Cornelius Bennett were great linebackers. Steve Tasker was a Pro Bowl special teams threat. It was their no-huddle K-gun offense that brought everything going. Instead of going to a huddle after each play, Kelly would send his offense back to the line of scrimmage and make the call there. It worked. Kelly was the top-ranked quarterback in the NFL. He had Andre Reed and James Lofton, both great wideouts, and Vernon Thomas put up almost 1,300 yards on offense. Kelly ended up missing the last 2 games of the Buffalo season with a knee injury. The Bills were 13-3. So the Giants, as a 2 seed, didn't have to play in the wildcard game, and they would face the Chicago Bears, crushing them 31-3. The Bears were just nothing. However, Ronnie Hampton would suffer a broken leg, and the Giants were down a running back. Then the Giants beat the Niners 15-13 in one of the great NFC title games, which I have done a video about. Anyway, the Niners looked good to go for their 3rd straight title, but a couple of key plays ruined it. First, Leonard Marshall's sack of Joe Montana, which actually knocked Montana out of the game, and people didn't realize that it would hurt Montana for almost all of the 91-92 season. And then, of course, Roger Craig's fumble, which saw the Giants march down the field with Matt Barr's 5th field goal. And Pat Summerall's call of, "There will be no three-peat," rings in Niners' ears. Meanwhile, Buffalo took on Miami on home turf and won 44-34. It was a tough game. Dan Marino was a tough son of a gun. But anyway, Buffalo won that game. And then they crushed the Raiders 51-3 in a game I did 7 days ago. In the video I did 7 days ago, 51-3. course, the Raiders didn't have Bo Jackson because of that career-ending injury. Well, would be a career-ending injury. So anyway, the Super Bowl pregame would be overshadowed by the Gulf War, as most things in early 91s were. The Giants would wear their home blues. The Bills would have to wear their all-white road uniforms. So anyway, it was huge and all that. Now the Bills were heavily favored because not only did their offense look good, they did beat the Giants. So anyway, yeah, all about that Gulf War. So ABC, not NBC, not CBS, but ABC would have the Monday Night Football broadcast group of Al Michaels, Frank Gifford, and Dan Dierdorf in the booth for ABC. Yeah, so anyway, Coke and Diet Pepsi pulled some ads. But Diet Pepsi's was huge because they were going to have a $3 million giveaway, which viewers would be invited to call a toll-free number during the first 3 quarters. The caller would get a free Diet Pepsi coupon and an opportunity to win one of 3 prizes of $1 million. But the FCC said that there would be problems with the telecommunications thing being overwhelmed and maybe emergency numbers not getting through. So anyway, Jack Buck and Hank Stram would do the game on the radio. Anyway, this was amazing. And then the pregame started. And who could forget Whitney Houston's Star Spangled Banner song on Super Bowl 25? Backed by the Florida Orchestra. It was amazing and all that. Houston did admit years later that she kind of lip-synced the live performance because when she did her rehearsal, it was great, but she felt she couldn't get the whole emotional thing with the Star Spangled Banner because of the Gulf War and all that. It was actually number 20 on the Billboard 100, making her the only time that a national anthem was a pop hit of that magnitude. Now, of course, if you watch Whitney Houston's performance, near the end of it, you see a lot of the USA flags, but there's one shot in which you see American flags, but then you see out of the corner of your eye, towards the right, you see a giant Canadian flag, because, Buffalo, being close to Canada. So, anyway, the halftime show, they did something about the worst halftime show ever. It was 1991. SB Nation did that. And I'm like, what the fuck? 91? Well, it's because it was rarely seen. It was going to be the Small World salute to 25 years of the Super Bowl. Disney would produce it 3,500 children from different ethnic backgrounds and New Kids on the Block would be doing that. Yeah, it was funny. Because when you watch that video, talk about the 91 halftime show, that little boy in the blonde bowl cut, and all that, saying, tonight, the heroes are in the Middle East. Right. It was kind of a patriotic thing. The Gulf War, trying to get America on the side to bomb Iran, Iraq, and Kuwait. Which it worked. Regardless of that. It wasn't seen everywhere because of Peter Jennings in the ABC booth telling everyone about the Gulf War. All that. The halftime show was shown on tape delay at 10:40 after the game. And of course, when I watched that SB Nation thing, and it says, an oddly Canadian Winnie the Pooh, I'm like, Winnie the Pooh was inspired by a Canadian bear. Are you nuts? Anyhow, so the game started and all that. However, Bill Belichick, who was the Giants' defensive coordinator and all that, and Bill Parcells knew what to do. And their thing was simple. Keep the Bills' offense off the field by using long drives, just run the ball and all that. Making sure the Bills' offense got a little bit anxious. Both Matt Barr and Scott Norwood kicked field goals, 3-3. This wouldn't be the last time I talk about Scott Norwood field goal. Anyway, Buffalo actually did take the lead 10-3 after key passes by Jim Kelly led to a 1-yard touchdown run by Don Smith, of all people, a running back. His only carry was a touchdown. Surprised they didn't give it to Furman or even Kenneth Davis. Anyway, it didn't matter. After the Giants were pinned at the 7-yard line by a punt, Bruce Smith managed to get Jeff Hostetler, who was in the game obviously because Phil Simms was out for the year, in his end zone for a safety, 12-3. Hostetler almost fumbled the ball, which would have probably given Buffalo a chance to score a touchdown. Fortunately for him, it was only 2 points. The Giants actually abandoned their long drive strategy and had a quick strike play, and it worked. Stephen Baker got a touchdown with 25 seconds left, 12-10. At the half, Buffalo looked it. And then the Giants resumed their game strategy by driving 75 yards in only 9 minutes, which was a Super Bowl record. And Otis Anderson, who wanted to play in the Super Bowl for one reason. The Giants running back would be going back to Tampa. He played for the University of Tampa. And it worked. It was 17-10. So, anyway. The Bills' offense had got nearly 2 hours of real time, including the halftime show, since the last possession of the ball. So Buffalo took over in the fourth quarter, down 17-12, and then Furman Thomas put up a 31-yard run on the first play of the fourth quarter, making it 19-17. And in fact, Furman Thomas's touchdown run was the 1,000th point in Super Bowl history. Well, 1,001 with the extra point. So anyway, it worked. The Giants went for 14 plays, 74 yards, and kicked the field goal, 20-19. So the Bills had a chance, but they punted. The Giants took time off the clock, but the Giants had to punt. So with 2:16 left, the Bills needed to do something. They had to go 90 yards for a touchdown, probably 75 yards for a field goal at best chance. So thanks to scrambling short passes and Furman Thomas running, they got the Bills to the 29-yard line, which would be a 46-yard field goal with 8 seconds left. A lot of people were actually shocked that Jim Kelly didn't run a play with 8 seconds left. And I think the Giants had a timeout and all that. So they had a chance to get closer. So Norwood would get a 47-yard field goal attempt on the right hash. Frank Reich would hold the ball. Adam Linger would be the long snapper. Unfortunately, ABC showed the graphic that Norwood was 1 for 5 on grass from more than 40 yards because Buffalo plays on a turf field. Well, that proved to be fatal as Norwood kicked it, but he drew it wide right. And the Giants won the game. It was a great game, 20-19. Jeff Hostetler shocked a lot of people by becoming this no-name quarterback who helped his team win the Super Bowl. Otis Anderson got 102 yards running, which was pretty good. Furman Thomas went for 135 yards rushing. In fact, the most yards rushing for a member of the losing team, 135, still to this day. So there was a gigantic aftermath and all of that. Now, before I get to the real super aftermath, of things, I want to talk about Scott Norwood's thing. It's easy to dismiss Scott Norwood and, his wide right as a terrible blunder. But when the guy can't kick a field goal for more than 40 yards on grass, and you also have the fact that, he's not used to grass fields and all of that, because Buffalo plays half their games at home on a turf field. Can't blame him for that. And I mean, who knew that Norwood's wide right miss would, be criticized? I mean, yeah, Buffalo had 3 Super Bowl losses after that, consecutively. And they weren't as close as Super Bowl 25. Super Bowl 26 was disastrous. Furman Thomas lost his helmet and didn't play the first few plays of the game. And Washington, well, you can blame that, but Washington freaking went 11-0 to start the 91-92 season. And you had Super Bowl 27 when the Cowboys crushed them in Divine Powder, scoring 52 points, which would have been 59 if it wasn't for Leon Lett's stupidity. But the simple fact is Dallas were rebuilding the team after the Tom Landry era, and it worked. And in Super Bowl 28, it looked like Dallas was going to lose to Buffalo finally, but no, didn't happen. That defensive game plan is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Nice. And it actually helped Belichick and Tom Coughlin, who was the wide receivers coach for the Giants, make themselves as head coach jobs. Belichick would head for Cleveland. Coughlin would head to Boston College, then to Jacksonville to do the expansion Jaguars. And he even spent 12 years as head coach of the Giants before resigning on his terms in 2016. Bill Parcells retired and did come back to coach. He coached the Pats from 93 to 96, the Jets from 97 to 99, and Dallas from 2003 to 2006. Belichick, of course, all his power with being the Patriots head coach and all that. In fact, only 2 Super Bowls in history have had 0 turnovers. This one, Super Bowl 25, and Super Bowl 34 with the Titans and the Rams. Some people thought that Ferm Thomas should have been named Super Bowl MVP because of his 135 yards. But he wasn't. It was Otis Anderson. And, he deserved it. The guy played for the University of Tampa, and he wanted to come home. And he got a Super Bowl at home. So, whatever. I'm not upset by that. But anyway, yeah, the Super Bowl was just remembered for only one thing, lied right. But it should be remembered for Whitney Houston's Star Spangled Banner rendition, the halftime show that should have been seen, but, the Gulf War. And, the defensive game plan. It all fits together, people. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.